In this video I'm going to make bead molding on my table saw, and I'm making the molding for this lift cabinet. This is a TV lift cabinet. So before I make the molding, I'll give you a quick tour of the cabinet. I didn't make a video while I was building it because I was just really figuring it out. I really was a little bit in the dark, and there was a lot of sort of putting the TV and the lift inside and taking it out to figure out my measurements. So I'll show you some of the things I did, and hopefully you'll find that helpful. So the first thing is the back here. The back is made up of two pieces of 3/4 inch birch plywood laminated together. And the reason for that is I really wanted some strength for the TV, for the lift to be connected to. And then that laminated piece of plywood is attached to a back, which is also 3/4 inch plywood, which is a little heavy. Most times you make backs out of 1/4 inch plywood. But I wanted the strength of the cabinet to hold the lift in place. Now, another thing is you'll see the access panels. And the access panels are there for electrical and cable and really anything that you're going to need to function the TV and the lift. And one more thing is there's an access here that lifts out for the electronics that the lift needs to function. So the electronics will get placed to the bottom of the cabinet, and then the access panel will fit back on top. So anyway, I hope you found that helpful. I will be building the rest of the cabinet. This is sort of the heart of the cabinet. The whole cabinet is going to be 10 feet wide and 8 feet high, and I'll basically be building it around this. This is the most complicated, so I wanted to build the center of the cabinet and then build around it. So now that I've showed you the cabinet, let's make some bead molding and put the bead molding on the face frame. Okay, real quick, there's one more thing that I thought I should mention, and that is, for this job, I made a full-size template. And what that's going to do is cut out all the guesswork on where the electric goes. So basically you can see I taped the template to the wall. We traced out the boxes. So this is a bookcase. This is going to be a bookcase built in that goes to the ceiling. So we've got an outlet on this side of the bookcase. We've got one on this side of the bookcase. And then we have two big boxes where we can have your cable and power to operate the TV and the lift and anything else that the TV cabinet might need. Okay, well now I'm ready to make my molding. And one of the nice things about making your own molding is it gives you an opportunity to get rid of some of your scrap wood. So I had a bunch of pieces of poplar, and the poplar is about 2 1/4 inches wide, and that's going to be perfect for this molding because each one of these lengths is going to give me 4 pieces of molding. And I'll show you how that works. But the first thing that I need to do is to take the blade out of my saw and replace it with the molding cutting head. Now, of course, the first thing that you want to do when changing any of your blades in the table saw is unplug the saw. So my saw is unplugged, and now I'm going to remove the blade. This is the cutting head that I'm going to use to make bead molding, and it comes with this spacer, which is a lot like a big washer. Now I've got the cutting head in the saw, and I've raised the head to the appropriate height, the molding height that I want, the profile. And what I'm going to do now is turn the saw on and start to make some molding. So now you can see that I've got 4 beads cut into this piece of wood stock. And the next step is to rip the stock, and I'm going to rip this at about 7/8 of an inch from the face of the bead, because I want a 3/4 inch measurement from, there's a little reveal line, I don't know if you can see it, to the back of the bead. And what that's going to do is that will fit perfectly on the face frame, because the face frame is made up of 3/4 inch material. Well, I'm almost there. There's only one cut left, and that is to remove this tongue that's left in the middle of the molding. And so I'll set my saw fence at 5/16, and I'll rip the piece of molding, which will remove this tongue. Then I'll flip the molding and cut this side of the bead, and that will remove the remaining part of the tongue and give me two pieces of molding that are exactly 5/16 of an inch thick. Well, that's it for making the molding, and the next step is to attach it to the face frame of the cabinet. And if you're wondering why I made so much molding, remember I still have 4 more cabinets to build. And if you're going to make molding, it's a good idea to try to make all the molding for that project at the same time. That way the measurements of your molding will all be the same. Now the first step to trim out the face frame with the bead molding is to cut a miter. But actually, even before cutting the miter, you need to identify which side is going to go down on the face frame and which side is going to be up. Now the wood that I'm using is S4S, which stands for sand and surface on 4 sides. So there's one side that's got a perfect factory edge, and the other side has got my table saw kerf marks on it. So what I want to do is make sure that's the side that's down. So when I cut my miter, I made sure the sharp point of the miter is on the side where it ran through the saw. So now that I've already done that, I'll lay that piece of bead molding in here, and then just put a little line with a sharp pencil point, and that's going to be my next miter. First, I'm going to check the fit, and that fits nice. So next, I'm going to put down a small bead of wood glue, and I like to use my hand as a guide, and that just gives me a nice straight bead right down the center of the face frame. Now I'll drop that piece of molding right on top of the bead, and I'm using my nail gun with 18 gauge inch long nails, and I'll make sure it's flush to the back. Now I'm just going to work my way around the cabinet. Okay, well, except for the doors, this cabinet's pretty much done. So I'm going to put it upstairs to get it out of my wood shop and make some room for the other cabinets that I have to build. And when I do that, I'll put the lift mechanism in and the TV and show you how that works. The doors I'm holding off on because I'm going to make these doors when I make the doors for the other 2 bottom cabinets. The upper cabinets aren't getting any doors. They're going to be open bookshelves. I brought the cabinet upstairs into my art studio, and now I'm going to install the lift. The lift has 4 brackets on it, 2 on each side, and each bracket has a space for 2 screws. And I've already pre-drilled where I'm going to attach the lift to the cabinet. And now I'm going to attach the electronics that are in the bottom of the cabinet, and I've already done this so the holes are drilled. Now this is the piece of plywood that will cover all of the electronics, and the button here will eventually be glued down, and I'll probably use a 5-minute epoxy for that. Now one more thing before I wrap it up. Notice the back of the cabinet. I decided to recess the back 3 inches, and that's basically done to give us a little mobility when we install the cabinet. So if we have to hide some wires back here, we can reach around through this box and put the wires back here, and that will allow us to get the cabinet up tight against the sheetrock wall. Okay, well that's it for this cabinet, and I will be building the other 2 sides and also the uppers, the bookcases, and when I do that and when those projects are finished, I'll be sure to put a link on the screen so you can see those. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.